Pretty Girl Club. Have you ever noticed that a lot of black women are in a random one sided competition with other women? It's almost like there's this competition to see how many non black men they can attract. I've noticed this overwhelming pattern where whenever there's a black female content creator bragging about her dating life, she always brags on having a non black man. Notice how she always brags on having a light skinned boyfriend, having a mixed race boyfriend, having a white boyfriend. They are not able to brag on black men because a lot of them view their own community as nothing to brag about. So she doesn't brag about how dark skinned or how black her children are. No, you'll see women bragging about how mixed or how light skinned their children are. Have you ever had black people say, oh, well, my daughter is your complexion. My stepson is your complexion. My husband is your complexion. My husband has your same phenotype. My daughter has your hair texture. It's almost like there's this invisible social competition to see who can have the most proximity to non-blackness. So this is why I have that talking point that most people want to either date us or create us. Because think about it. You'll see unambiguous black women having a rivalry against MLS women, but then their boyfriend will be an MLS man. The man that they lust after on movies, and they'll be lusting after men like Aaron Pierre or like the guy from Bridgerton. So that's how I know that not only do they think our phenotype is attractive, but they also pedestalize anything that is not unambiguous blackness. Have you ever noticed that? They'll rush to move to white neighborhoods as soon as they get some money. They'll move out of the black neighborhoods. They'll go to white neighborhoods. They will go to white institutions. They will seek jobs in these non-black owned companies, and they want to be associated with non-black communities as much as possible. So this is why I say put some respect on the Exoticals name, because you're trying to get into my community. You're trying to get into the multicultural community. You're trying to get into a multiracial community. So put some respect on our name. And for the black women that are dating men with a lighter complexion than them, okay, once again, put some respect on light-skinned black women's name. Put some respect on monoracial light-skinned black women's name. Because if you're over here sleeping with or creating babies with a monoracial man who is significantly lighter than you, you're trying to create these light-skinned monoracial women. You're creating light-skinned monoracial babies. So that's why I always say that I see right through the hypocrisy. Because you've got women who are in this invisible one-sided competition with us, and then they're secretly trying to figure out how to fit in our communities. And that's actually why they say things like, oh, well, your white side doesn't accept you. It's like, okay, if my white side doesn't accept me, then what does that say about you as a dark-skinned, unambiguous black woman with 4C hair and broad features? And they also expose themselves because it's like, you're telling me that Hollywood doesn't like you. The music industry doesn't like you. The beauty industry doesn't like you. Racists, colorists, texturists, and featurist people don't like you. But suddenly you want me to believe that multi-billionaire white men adore you and that they put you on a pedestal? That's got to be the biggest load of BS I've ever heard. So that's how I know that whenever they use these talking points, oh, well, women are just jealous because my white husband is loving on me. Okay, the fact that you're viewing love as a competition, that's a problem, sis. Relationships are not a competition. This is why I say that a lot of their talking points about isms and a lot of their relationship talking points, it's never about social justice. It's always about social status. Because you got a lot of people in the black community, both black men and women. You see black men doing this with kind of that passport bro talking point. So they brag about like going to Dominican Republic or, it's the same thing with a lot of black men. A lot of black men want to date us or create us as well. So you've got an entire group of people using their romantic relationships as a form of social climbing, or they're using their romance as a sign of social status. So it's like, how are you going to use us as your standard of living and your standard of status and success while simultaneously trying to convince us that we are mediocre or that we're not that cute or that we're not accepted? The mixed race population is growing. The multicultural population is growing. The unambiguous, monoracial, dark-skinned black population in America is not growing at the same rate as the Exoticals. More Exoticals are being created every single day. And I've noticed that some black women have this mindset of, if I can't be her, at least I can fuck a man that looks like her. So if I can't be the multiracial woman, if I can't be the quote unquote exotic black woman, if I can't be the dark skinned exotical, I can at least sleep with a man who has that phenotype. I can at least get with an Indian man and then create a dark skinned Blasian exotical baby. So it's almost as if they are viewing some of their romantic relationships as like this consolation prize. It's almost like, oh, if I can't be multiracial, at least I can be in the multiracial environment. If I don't get to be part white, at least I can sleep with someone who's white. So they see sex as a form of power and social dominance. And that's why you've got women making talking points like, oh, well, you got men jacking off to me. They're jacking off to ebony porn. I am an ebony. Well, why are they saying that? Well, it's because they view sex as a form of power and dominance. That's the only way that some people feel that they can have a sense of power, because when they go out into society in their everyday life, they don't feel celebrated. They don't feel loved. They don't feel pedestalized. They don't feel special. And so for them, sex becomes their only gateway to social status. They feel like they have to exchange sex in order to feel included. That's why you see a lot of women, they go out of their way to make babies with the light-skinned men, because it's their way of kind of fitting in with the light-skinned community by proxy. Because have you ever noticed that the main people that argue against this space, they start off qualifying themselves by saying, oh, well, I have a biracial sibling. Well, I have a light-skinned daughter. Well, my husband is light-skinned. My boyfriend's light-skinned. So therefore, I have authority when it comes to the mixed or light-skinned community. And it's like, why are you viewing your loved ones? I thought that you loved those people. Why would you try to use your own loved ones as a pawn? Why are you using your children or your romantic partner as a social pawn to give yourself authority and dominance over your rival who has their exact same phenotype? And this is why I believe that most divestors won't actually be successful at divesting, because you love white men, but then you hate white women. So how's that going to go over if you marry a white man and he has a sister or he has a mother? Or, how's that going to go over when you have children that are half white? Or when you move to these white neighborhoods that you're running to move to? How's that going to go over? So that's why I say it's a form of cognitive dissonance. So you guys know that my theory on this is that most mental illnesses come from cognitive dissonance. That's just my theory that I kind of made up, because think about it. Cognitive dissonance, that's when you feel like you're fake. That's when you feel inauthentic. That is when you feel almost like this sense of being exposed, or like you don't want to be exposed. You don't want to be exposed as a fraud. It's almost like this imposter syndrome. Have you ever noticed that a lot of people in the Black community struggle really badly with imposter syndrome? So for example, they'll say things like, oh, well, you sound white. First of all, there's no such thing as sounding white. Secondly, if this is my natural voice, this is me being my authentic self. So I don't feel like an imposter. So telling me that I sound white, that's not going to make me feel insecure. But a person that has cognitive dissonance, they're walking around in a state of fear. They're walking around in fight or flight mode. Remember how I talked about how there are 4 different responses to trauma. There's fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. So the ones who run to sleep with mixed race people while hating mixed race women, the ones who run to date in non-Black communities while hating women from multiracial communities, those ones they're operating in the fawn trauma response. So they fawn on our male counterparts. They fawn over our non-Black ancestry. They fawn over our white side. They're fawning over the white communities, the Polish communities, the Italian communities, whatever. But deep down inside, they're in this social competition with white women. They're in this competition with biracial women. They're in a secret competition with Blasian women. That's cognitive dissonance. So her own nervous system is recognizing that, hey, something is off. How am I calling people mediocre, or saying that they're not even cute, or that, they look crazy because those genetics don't go together? How am I doing that, but then at the same time, I'm sleeping with a man who has those same genetics? I'm making fun of lighter skin tones, or saying they look like vampires, or saying that, their aesthetic doesn't look good, but then I'm sexually pursuing a man with the same exact skin complexion. Or I'm creating children who are going to have that same skin complexion. And also being child-free, I notice some Black women, they try to clap back and say, oh, well, I'm dating a white man, but I'm child-free, so I'm not going to have a child that benefits from the isms. Okay, but your spouse or your boyfriend benefits from the isms, sis. If your boyfriend is white, he absolutely is benefiting from at least one ism. So that could be colorism, texturism, featureism. So it's hilarious how they try to pretend, like once the Exoticals start talking, they try to pretend like this is suddenly not an important conversation, and they pretend like suddenly nobody benefits from isms. Meanwhile, the man that they're sleeping with benefits from the isms every single day. The man that they're sleeping with has access to privileges that they themselves will never have. And that's part of the reason why they're even with those men. It's because a lot of women with inferiority complexes, they view their relationship as a stepping stool so they can compete with white women, with mixed women, with light-skinned women, with dark-skinned mixed women. Any black woman that is in a normal, healthy relationship that's interracial, she doesn't have all these weird beliefs and this strange hatred against mixed race people. Ask any black woman you know that genuinely loves her spouse and her children who are mixed race. She's not going to say, oh my God, they're so mediocre, you're ugly, you're not even cute, you're average at best, you can't compete with non-black Latinos. No, it's only the women who have the inferiority complexes who use their relationship as a validation source. Those are the only ones that have the most crap to talk about Exoticals. And another thing too, I see some women, they'll try to brag if they get with an unambiguous black man. They'll be like, oh, well, you know, my husband or my boyfriend, he's an unambiguous Nigerian man. And it's like, okay, but you're kind of a passport cis if you are American, because you made fun of people for being passport bros, or you're saying that us mixed race women are the daughters of black fathers who are passport bros, but you are a passport cis. And have you guys ever noticed that a lot of them view MLS people and non-black people as being a stronger source of validation? Have you guys ever noticed that? Because I noticed that they seek our validation, not just in friendships, not just in romantic relationships, but they also use us as a flex. Because notice how whenever they want to talk down on the Exoticals, they'll try to compare us to each other. So they'll say to light-skinned black women, oh, well, you know, you don't compare to the light-skinned mixed women. And then they'll say to the dark-skinned Exoticals, the dark-skinned women who benefit from texturism or featureism, they'll say, oh, well, you're still just monoracial. You're not mixed, and you don't compare to the light-skinned women. So have you noticed this pattern where they triangulate us against each other? Because they know they can't flex on you with an unambiguous woman. They feel like unambiguous people are beneath MLS people, so that's why they never triangulate you with an unambiguous person. They always make MLS people compete with one another. So they'll say things like, oh, well, your non-black side, they don't like you. Your non-black side doesn't accept you. They'd rather jack off to ebony porn, and I'm an ebony. Or they'll be like, oh, well, you're biracial men, MLS men, they don't like you. They hit on me. Have you ever seen that in your comment section? I've seen that in my comment section sometimes. There will be unambiguous black women randomly bringing up how they date MLS men because the MLS men hit on them the most. And it's like, sis, dating and relationships is not a competition. That's not why you should be dating. If you're dating because you're searching for self-esteem, and this is why I say a lot of them, they just want to be chosen. It's not about love. A lot of their relationships are not about love. It's about optics. It's about image. It's about wanting to feel chosen. So they're doing the same thing that they accuse black men of doing. You know how they say that some black men are like coons and they date white women so they can look like they're successful? Well, a lot of black women are the same way. You're two sides of the same coin. You're bragging about dating a white man because you think it makes you appear more classy. You think it makes you appear more multicultural. It's kind of like how that girl on the Pop the Balloon show, I did a video the other day where the girl was like, oh, I'm Jamaican and British, and I'm a part of a multicultural sorority. She's an unambiguous black woman who felt the need to say that within the first 5 minutes of meeting people. So why are they doing that? Well, it's because a lot of people deep down inside, they know that there is value in multiculturalism. And deep down inside, most people want to date us or create us, or they're fighting to get into our communities. They want to learn how to get into our communities. So it makes sense as to why some of them would be jealous of our social status. Because if you associate white men with elegance, and then you've got a friend who's mixed, her grandfather's white, you know, her dad's half white, her mom's half white. So she's literally the descendant of both black and white people. So yeah, of course she's going to be jealous because she associates your literal DNA with being associated with elegance. Or she associates Indian people, for example. I've seen some women fetishizing like Indian men or Asian men. So let's say you're a dark-skinned Blasian exotical. Maybe you got a Caribbean background or something. You got a significant amount of Indian ancestry. Okay, so that woman, she is viewing your Indian ancestry as making you stand out. That makes you exotic. You're benefiting from texturism, for example. So now you have escaped one of the traumas that a lot of unambiguous women go through. And by the way, it's hilarious how some of them talk about exoticals trying to survive. Like, oh, you're just trying to be white passing. You're trying to look more like Mariah Carey. You're trying to make yourself look as light skinned as possible as a survival tactic. And it's hilarious that they're talking about survival tactics when they are the main ones who are fighting to get out of black spaces, fighting to wear hair textures that match non-black women. And then they'll have the audacity to say, oh, I'm not wearing European hair. Actually, I'm wearing Malaysian hair. I'm wearing Peruvian hair. It's like, okay, so you pedestalize Afro-Peruvian women. So Afro-Latinas, that would make sense as to why you would be jealous. Because if you're over here bragging about wearing Peruvian hair textures, of course you're going to be triggered by a woman that's got Peruvian ancestry. But some of them, they will date biracial men because they want to have that social capital. Yet they're still resentful towards biracial women who naturally embody that identity. So it's like you got unambiguous black people chasing proximity to biracial identities, but then have the audacity to downplay biracial identities. It's like, sis, we've seen you chasing after our community for decades now. We've seen you chasing after the MLS men. We see you chasing after the non-black men. So you can create those biracials. Okay, and another thing they don't understand is that, especially if you're mixed race, we have family members who are white or Indian or whatever, Mexican, Hispanic. They're from different backgrounds, different ethnic groups. So we don't view it as like some sort of weird flex. Like, oh my God, I'm so cool because my family speaks more than one language, or I'm so much cooler than other people because my family has different phenotypes. We don't view it that way because that's a part of our normal everyday lives. We're used to seeing diversity. A lot of us are used to diversity because we have diversity in our own families. So we don't get intimidated if we are the darkest person in the room. Some of us are the darkest people in our family. Some of us are the darkest sibling. So we don't have the same feeling of isolation that a lot of people with inferiority complexes feel. Because I noticed that some of them, they almost start putting on a front. So they will change their whole hobbies. They'll change their whole personality so they can fit in with like whiteness, for example. Like I see a lot of unambiguous black women are starting to take over the golfing industry now. They're telling each other like, oh, go learn golf, go learn how to play tennis, go learn how to play pickleball. So they're taking over all of these industries that they think a lot of non-black men hang out in. And it's their way of trying to attain social capital. And it's like, okay, if you play tennis because you actually like tennis, that's one thing. But if you're playing tennis because you think that, you know, that's your only way to fit in with whiteness, that's something to look at. That's something to look at. Because where is your cultural pride? I think it's hilarious because they'll get mad at a mixed person for having cultural pride. They'll get mad at us for being proud of our heritage, proud of our skin tone, proud of our ancestors. And it's like, the only reason you're mad is because you don't have any cultural pride. You don't have pride in your unambiguous blackness. You don't have pride in your dark skin tone. You don't have pride in your 4C hair texture. So of course you're going to get mad if you see someone having pride in their type 3 hair texture. It's because that person is accessing a level of confidence that you've never had. They're accessing a level of self-esteem that you've never had. Sometimes when a person doesn't have self-esteem, they try to seek esteem and status from others. It's like that external locus of control that I always talk about on here. So they're trying to earn their way through proximity. So if I can't be a mixed person, at least I can sleep with a mixed race man. And then they'll be like, oh, well, when it comes to black men date mixed women because they hate themselves. And then black women, they never hate themselves. You know, it's just perfect. If it's a black mother and a white father, that's going to be a better way to create babies. And it's like, well, prove it. If black women don't have children based off self-hate, why can't you prove it? Why are there no stats to prove it? Why are there thousands of women here on the Exoticals United channel telling story times of their own mothers, viewing them as competition? And that's a very common phenomenon, by the way, because a lot of black women, they'll rush to get into these marriages with non-black wealthy men. And then they'll realize, wait a minute, I'm about to birth an extremely privileged, beautiful, mixed race woman who comes from a suburban background. So they get a wake-up call when they actually birth those children. They're like, wait a minute, I'm birthing a daughter that has a totally different background than me. And have you noticed, a lot of them will say, I don't want to have a daughter, I want to have a son. Why is that? Well, it's because they know that subconsciously they're going to view their own daughter as competition. And also when they see that their daughter is beautiful, she doesn't have colorism, texturism, and featureism trauma, and if that black woman married a wealthy white man, and then she sees her mixed race, light-skinned daughter growing up in wealth too, that's going to trigger a lot of her childhood traumas. And so that's why you see a lot of unambiguous black mothers being extra hard on their MLS daughters. Because a lot of those black mothers feel like it's not fair. You already had a better childhood than I had. So I'm not going to give you any extra love. I'm not going to give you any extra care. I'm not going to be emotionally available for you as a mother, because you better be glad that you are even born this way anyway. Be glad that you even benefit from colorism. Be glad that you don't even have to go through colorism, texturism, and featureism. You don't have to go through classism because you were born in the suburbs. So you see a lot of unambiguous black mothers resentful against their own daughters, but then you'll also see some of them saying, oh, me and my light-skinned boyfriend, we're going to have a little light-skinned son. I can't wait. Well, why is the reaction different? Why do they react differently to MLS men versus women? Well, it's because they've always wanted light-skinned male validation. A lot of them have always wanted biracial male validation, so that's why they're excited to have a little son. It's so they can make that son into their emotional husband. It's so they can get validation from their son. And then I've even heard some of them go as far as saying, I'm going to have a little biracial son, and I'm going to teach him to be sexually attracted to black women. It's like, what the hell is wrong with you? Why would you care? And why would you try to sexually train your son on like what to be attracted to? That sounds extremely weird. That sounds very much like emotional incest. I've literally heard women say that. If you go on Reddit right now, go on Facebook, go look at some of these groups where there are women who are in these interracial relationships. You'll hear some of them saying, oh yeah, I'm excited to teach my light-skinned son to be attracted to dark-skinned black women. I'm going to show him pictures and images of dark-skinned black female celebrities, and I'm going to talk about how pretty and beautiful those women are so I can train him to be attracted to dark-skinned black women. And it's like, that's weird. Why do you care so much about your son being attracted to your exact phenotype? It's because they wanted male validation. So that's why some women, they create these mama's boys. Have you ever met an MLS man with an unambiguous black mother, and he is a mama's boy? Have you ever met a grown man like that? Well, a part of that has to do with emotional incest. A part of that has to do with that man's black mother seeking his emotional validation. A lot of MLS men with black mothers do not want their sons to be with an MLS woman. I also want to talk about that dynamic as well. Have you ever noticed that? These are all things that I talk about in the Patreon. I tend not to say anything positive or really talk about MLS dating dynamics publicly because that's nobody's business except for like our community. So I talk more about that in the Patreon if you're interested in that. But I have seen that dynamic as well, where you've got these mixed race men. You got these light-skinned men who happen to have these dark-skinned, unambiguous mothers, and the mother gets mad if that man brings home a woman who is not a dark-skinned black woman. The mother gets mad when her son brings home somebody white or brings home somebody who's light-skinned, somebody who's mixed race, because those same feelings of rivalry, the same traumas that that woman had when she was a child that she never worked through, she's feeling that same rivalry against her son's girlfriend or against her son's wife. So that's where you get kind of this toxic black mother-in-law scenario from. And it's so hilarious because I see a lot of content creators, they act like everybody else is the problem. And it's like, okay, if we can call out the flaws in black men, white men, mixed race women, we're calling out the flaws in every other people group. But suddenly if I call out the flaws within the black community, when it comes to black women, suddenly I'm wrong and I'm being colorist and racist. Do you see the hypocrisy there? Also, for those of you who believe that all the Exoticals are unambiguous black women, well, that means that we get to call out unambiguous women as much as we want then, if we are unambiguous. And that also means we get the N-word pass as well. But have you ever seen an MLS man with a dark-skinned black mother where she doesn't want her son to date you as an MLS woman because she secretly wanted her son to get with a dark-skinned black woman because she's living vicariously through that. She's living vicariously through the idea of herself having MLS male validation. So of course she wanted her MLS son to be with an unambiguous dark-skinned black woman because that's validating to her. It makes her feel chosen to see somebody else of her phenotype being chosen by her son. And actually, you'll hear a lot of MLS men admit this, and they don't realize what they're admitting. But you'll hear a lot of MLS men admit, oh, I'm attracted to dark-skinned black women because my mother was a dark-skinned black woman, and she naturally was very pro-black and taught me to be that way. Okay, so there he's admitting that he was essentially groomed by his mother to be attracted to that. And notice how usually it's going to be MLS men who are from kind of more of an impoverished type of background. I know that most MLS men are not like that if they come from a normal household. But another dynamic too is that you'll see sometimes white men, non-black men, or MLS men just running through unambiguous black women, just sleeping with unambiguous women left and right because those women are naturally throwing themselves at those men anyway. So oftentimes it's much easier for those men to get sexual access to unambiguous women because you've got these unambiguous women. They're in this one-sided competition with us. They're in this one-sided competition with white women. So they're going out of their way to have sexual encounters with white men because they view it as a prize to be able to brag and say, oh yeah, I slept with Scott. You know, I slept with 5 Indian men. So it's the same thing that black men do. Same thing that passport bros do, where they're bragging about it. It's like a form of sexual tourism. It is a form of sexual tourism. So it's almost like insecure people in general. They're like a sexual tourist. They're like a relationship tourist. So they're viewing that person as a notch on their belt, and they're viewing that person's race or phenotype as a status symbol. But then that actually benefits the men because then the men, they're like, oh, cool. Random girl just wants to sleep with me? Okay, great. Random girl's throwing herself at me? Okay, great. I'm not going to say no. So then you have these men who are also insecure, whether it's an MLS man or it could be a non-black man. You've got these men who feel like they have low sexual desirability, but then once you get unambiguous women throwing themselves at you, then it's like, oh, okay, cool. Well, I guess I wasn't as undesirable as I thought. Okay, great. Let me just sleep with all these women. And then that's where you get the complaint from dark-skinned women where they say that they feel like men have just used them as like a sexual experiment, or they feel like men have quote unquote pumped and dumped them, or they feel like men practice their sexual moves or whatever on the unambiguous women, and then once they're done, they discard those women. Well, yeah, it's because you've got two groups of people who are struggling with desirability, and they're coming together. Because that's another thing too. Have you ever noticed that a lot of times the white men that these unambiguous women brag about having, I mean, I showed a picture of one of the guys, and one of the TikTokers, she's like a divested TikToker, she's bragging about how light-skinned women are jealous of her because she's being loved well by her white husband. This man looked like he's 75 years old. So even when they do brag about sleeping with people of other ethnicities, it's usually like somebody who's super old, they're considered unattractive in their group or whatever. It's somebody broke. It's somebody that has hella kids, hella baby mamas. Or in some cases, you got the woman paying all the bills, kind of like Queen of Kings. So she was on social media flexing, saying like, oh, look, I'm spoiled, you know, trying to make it look like her man was spoiling her. But in reality, she bought herself that car. She bought herself that vacation. So you've got a lot of black women doing that same thing as well. I don't know if you guys have seen some of the videos on TikTok where there are waiters in restaurants. They're making videos talking about how they've seen unambiguous black women on dates with non-black men, and that the woman is usually paying. And that whenever they see a black couple, like let's say it's a dark-skinned black woman and a dark-skinned black man, then it'll be the man paying. But whenever it's an unambiguous woman with like a non-black man, a lot of times in the restaurants, it's her paying for the meal. So some of these women, they will seek after education, or they'll seek after getting money because they feel like, okay, my beauty doesn't give me access to these types of men. My skin complexion or whatever, you know, they have an inferiority complex. So they're like, okay, my natural phenotype does not give me proximity to these men. So maybe my money will give me proximity to these men. And this is where you get almost like that sugar mama, kind of the black sugar mama archetype from. So it's like they couldn't attract that guy just naturally. They couldn't attract that guy and feel spoiled or feel feminine or what. They talk so much about femininity. So it's like they don't feel feminine in their natural state. So they have to step into their masculine. They have to step into this role of hustling. Have you ever noticed that? Have you ever noticed that a lot of women with inferiority complexes, it's almost like they have this hustle mentality when it comes to dating and relationships. They're like, oh no, you have to have the perfect wig and the perfect weave, and you have to do this strategy to where you go to a specific place, and then that's how you have to purchase the weave, and then you have to make sure that the lace is laid down, then you have to make sure that your makeup is slayed, and then you can't wear the long eyelashes, you can't wear red lipstick because dark-skinned black women don't look good in bright colors, and then you can't wear this type of jewelry. So they've got all these random strategies, all these random rules. They're over here, it's as if they're going to a university just so they can learn how to date non-black men. They're following content creators that are anonymous. Have you ever noticed that as well? The main black women who consider themselves to be authority figures on dating interracially, these are oftentimes women who are anonymous. They don't show themselves, they don't show who their husband is, they don't show the man, they don't have the man come online and say, hey, my name is Scott, and I am paying the bills. I am providing for so-and-so black woman. I'm paying the bills. I was attracted to her because she's a beautiful person. No, they never show who this magical, mystical, ethereal white man is. They never show who their magical biracial husband is. And so it's a form of cognitive dissonance, because how could you be so male-centered, so enthusiastic and excited to have access to this man, and then when you finally get access to him, you're too ashamed to show the world who this magical man is? Shouldn't you be proud to call yourself his wife? Shouldn't you be proud to call him your boyfriend? So why is it that they have so much pride when it comes to flexing their biracial husband, for example? They'll flex their biracial husband. They'll flex their light-skinned boyfriend and be like, oh yeah, my boyfriend, he's not a colorist. He's light-skinned and he loves me. Okay, does he love you for you, or does he just love the pedestal that you put him on? Because a lot of them will accuse us MLS women. They'll say to us, oh, if you date black men, that, you know, you're only with him because he puts you on a pedestal. But then they'll turn around and go tell other black women to go where they're celebrated. And so I have the same question for you. Are you sure that your man is not just there because you're celebrating him? And by the way, there's nothing wrong with celebrating each other in a relationship. So I find it interesting. They're obsessed with relationships. They're using relationships as their tool for social status. They want proximity to biracials. They want proximity to non-blackness because they don't value their own community, obviously. Because according to their own talking points, they say that their men are dusty. This is according to their own talking points. They say that their community is dusty. They say that the black community, which is their community, is basically trash and that it's at the bottom. But another thing I've noticed too is that a lot of black women with inferiority complexes, they tolerate way more BS from non-black men. Have you ever noticed that? They'll tolerate BS. They'll try to say that they have so many standards. They'll say that they don't like cheaters and they don't like 50-50 men. But then as soon as they get with a non-black man or a light-skinned man, they don't care that he's broke. They don't care that he's got 5 baby mamas. They don't care that he's a deadbeat dad to some other women. They don't care that he's been divorced 5 times. They don't care that he's hella old, got a beer belly, bald circle in the middle of his head, yellow teeth. So they'll brag about having all these standards, but they actually don't have those standards when it comes to men of a different phenotype. And that's part of why they never show those men on their YouTube channels. That's part of why they can't show them, because they know that people would literally be dying with laughter if they saw some of these supposedly high value white or non-black men. And another talking point that they say, they'll be like, oh, the Exoticals, they're trying to scare black women into dating black men. Newsflash, we don't care who you date. And also, if you're saying that it's scary to date within your own community, okay, so you're denigrating your own community. That's your problem. You're the one who's a part of the unambiguous community. So that sounds like a personal problem to me. If your community, the unambiguous dark-skinned black community, if that community is filled with dusties and like it's bad and you're scared to date each other or whatever, or like your relationships are so dusty and dysfunctional, that sounds like a personal problem. We are not a part of the unambiguous monoracial dark-skinned black community that suffers from colorism, texturism, and featureism. So you're projecting. You're revealing the fact that you actually do believe that the black community is at the bottom. And by the way, have you ever noticed too, even when it comes to unambiguous women who are on TikTok saying that they date non-black men, or they'll say they're divested. I saw one girl, she was like, oh, I don't date black men unless it's Denzel Washington. Okay, so you do date black men then. So what are you talking about? Stop trying to pretend like you don't date black men. You don't date ghetto black men. That's what you meant to say. You don't date hood black men. You date the suburban, kind of the more classy, talented black man like a Denzel Washington. So a lot of these women who say they're like divested, they're also not divested. They would date, quote unquote, Denzel Washington if he gave them the time of day. So the problem is that the black men that they want, according to their own talking points, the black men that they want exoticals or non-black women. That's what it is. So a lot of these women, they'll say, I don't date black men, but then they actually care about black football players and who those guys date. It's like, okay, so you would have dated a football player. You would have dated a rapper. You would have dated a tech bro. You would have dated kind of like this nerdy suburban type of black guy. So that's a form of cognitive dissonance. Do you see how that can lead to like mental illness in a way? Because they have cognitive dissonance. They'll lie to themselves and pretend like they're throwing away the entire black community, but in reality, they actually are not throwing away the whole black community. They just wanted black excellence. So it's not that they didn't date black men, it's that they don't date ghetto, colorist black men. So when it comes to the non-ghetto, non-colorist, suburban types of black men, those were the guys that they wanted, but obviously that's pretty rare to see unambiguous men that have that sort of background. And so because they have a scarcity mindset, or because they experienced being drowned out by other women, they felt like they just got washed away in the crowd, or like they couldn't compete according to their own talking points, that's what caused the anger. And that's what caused the resentment. And also I've noticed that some unambiguous women have this mindset where they think that men will automatically reject them. So I haven't finished Love Island yet, but Olandria reminded me of this, because the entire time I was watching the show, I was like, why don't Olandria and Nick get together? Like, Nick is clearly attracted to her. Nick is clearly flirting with her. I mean, I'm multicultural, so I understand the flirting signals that come from like white men, but I noticed throughout the show, Olandria never noticed until the very end when they both like got eliminated. Then Nick said, oh, actually, like, I want to see like what's up with you, basically. I don't know what happens after that, because that's the part that I'm on, but it's like, okay, some of these women, they feel like they're going to be rejected, because even Olandria said, oh, well, you had a lot going on with Sierra, and a lot of other women were like basically wanting to talk to you. So essentially, Olandria was admitting that Nick's desirability was threatening to her. She felt like she would be drowned out, or like she would fade away when it comes to all the female attention that Nick was getting. Meanwhile, Nick, in the confessional, he had said that he vibed well with Olandria. He had said that she was sexy before. He's picking her up. He was naturally like flirting with her. So Nick actually saw more value in Olandria than Olandria saw in herself. So that's actually a very common psychological phenomenon when it comes to unambiguous women and their dating habits outside of the unambiguous community. A lot of them feel like they're going to be rejected. Well, actually, they feel this way sometimes in the black community as well, because sometimes they assume, I've noticed a lot of them assume that like all black guys are colorist or whatever. So they'll assume that everybody's colorist, texturist, or featurist. And then at the same time, when they go to non-black communities, they're threatened because they feel like, oh shit, this is a rich white man. He's got women of all different phenotypes going against him. I can't compete with all these women. So do you see how that creates an extreme scarcity mindset? Do you see that flaw when it comes to black women's dating culture? So you got other black women creating YouTube channels basically saying like, oh, you have to compete, blah, blah, blah. Like, and then also I've noticed that they associate dating non-black men with leveling up. So they'll get mad at the exotical space. They'll be like, oh, the exoticals are just jealous because black women are leveling up and we're dating white men. It's like, okay, sis, you just exposed yourself. Like, you do realize that you literally just exposed the fact that you view white culture and white communities and multicultural communities as being a level up. Okay, so then what does that make us as multicultural or multiracial black women? So you just said that we are naturally leveled up then, because we're already adjacent to, or we are the descendants of those people groups. And then when it comes to the decentering men talking point, the reason why you see some black women not wanting to decenter men or viewing it as extreme is because they've spent the past 30, 40 years, they spent the last 20 years revolving their entire life and revolving all of their social strategies around the male gaze. So that is called the sunk cost fallacy. So they felt like, I can't give this up because if I decenter men, that means that I have wasted 20 years chasing after men just for me to decenter them. I wasted 30 years chasing after men just so I could decenter them? No. So I'm going to keep centering men because I've already been doing it for a long time. So it's only a matter of time before it finally works out. So it's the sunk cost fallacy. They don't want to give up on centering men because they feel like they've already invested too much of their lives in the male gaze. So they feel like if they give up, it will cause a period of grief for them. They would literally be grieving the lost time that they had in their life. Because a lot of them, I've noticed a lot of unambiguous women who feel unattractive, they have a fear of aging. I want to talk about that as well. Have you ever noticed that? A lot of them have a fear of aging because their beauty only comes from their youth. Their beauty doesn't come from their actual face card not declining. They don't have the face card. They don't have the other markers of beauty. So the only type of beauty they have is, I guess, youth, according to themselves. So that's why you've heard black female content creators like Chrissy or like Blunt Girly expressing a fear of aging. That's why you hear them, a lot of them will hide their age. Have you ever noticed that pretty privileged women, they don't mind sharing their age? Look at Shira 7. She has shared her age several times. I've shared my age on here. I'm 33. I have no problem saying that because if you truly are gorgeous, if your face card doesn't decline, you're going to still be beautiful. You have the same face. So you're going to still be beautiful as time goes on. And especially if you're good at self-care. Look at Naomi Campbell. Look at Angela Bassett. Look at Sade. Look at Halle Berry. Look at Felicia Rashad. These women are in their 50s all the way up through their 70s. And they still have pretty privilege. And one of the gaslighting talking points, they'll be like, oh, well, she doesn't look 25. She doesn't look like an 18-year-old. Okay, what 50-year-old woman wants to look like she's 18? That's weird to me. If you're 50 and you want to look like a teenager, that's kind of weird. Because it's like, what are you doing? Are you trying to attract teenage guys? Most women who want to be beautiful, even if they're older, they're not even trying to attract 25-year-olds. They're not trying to attract 18-year-olds. So they don't need to look 18. Angela Bassett doesn't need to look like she's 25. I'm pretty sure that if she wanted to date or be pretty in the male gaze, she would probably go for someone that's closer to her age range. Because a lot of people, they talk about cougars. Okay, but that's a subcategory of dating. That's not like the norm. It's not like the average woman who's in her 50s wants to look like a teenager and date 18-year-old boys. But a lot of women who have inferiority complexes, they brag about being desired by biracials because that's an attempt to prove their own worth. She wants to prove her worth or her beauty. So she's in competition with you. She's in competition with MLS women. It's almost this talking point of, hey, if society sees you as the default beauty, I want to beat you at your own game. Oh, you thought you were cute. You thought you were a cute light-skinned girl, but look at me. I got a cute light-skinned guy. So do you see the competition mindset there? It's kind of like they want to beat you at your own game because they assume that us MLS women, that we're just basking in the attention and oh my God, we're sitting up here on a pedestal just thinking about men and we're just sitting in our bedrooms texting men all day long. We're sitting in our bedrooms texting men for 3 hours. That was one of the most laughable talking points. Oh, well, the real pretty privileged women, they would be sitting around texting men. They would have so many men in their phones. So they're creating all of these random metrics, such as, how many likes do you get on Tinder? How many text messages do you get in your phone? How light-skinned is your boyfriend? Oh, well, I win because my boyfriend is white. So he's the ultimate light-skin. My boyfriend looks like a vampire. He's the ultimate light-skin. And it's also hilarious how they call light-skinned people vampires, or they say we look like corpses, and then you're turning around and dating actual white men, like Nordic white men. So you're making fun of pale skin while bragging about dating a man with pale skin. Do you see the cognitive dissonance? Do you see the hypocrisy? And also, let's talk about women who make this talking point of, oh, well, men lust after me more. Have you ever noticed this? Some black women, they try to weaponize lust against you. So for example, They will say things like, oh, I have a fatter ass than you. You know, I have a giant BBL and men like me more. Men like dark-skinned black women. We have better booties. Men jack off to me. They jack off to ebony porn. Okay, so she's actually weaponizing men's lust. So now she's in a sexual competition with you as well. And this is another thing. Have you ever noticed that if you're a very feminine, dainty, kind of more wholesome MLS woman, have you ever been around dark-skinned, unambiguous black women who will make fun of you for that? And they'll say that that's boring. I noticed a lot of black women did this to Aisha Curry. I noticed that, YouTubers like Blunt Girly did this to me because she knows that I come from a background that's considered more wholesome, kind of like this religious Christian background, kind of like this suburban, background where it's like I wasn't very sexualized. You guys know my body count on here. I've actually told you guys. So it's like you'll have these unambiguous women basically weaponizing lust or bragging about being sexualized and fetishized. And then I've noticed they have a tendency to call us boring, especially if you're an MLS woman who just happens to not like sexualize herself. So let's say you're just like somebody's wife, or you're kind of like Nara Smith or somebody like that. They'll be like, oh, well, she's boring. She's probably boring in bed. Her man doesn't really like her. He's not really into her. And they're saying that because they can't fathom a man liking a woman for more than just her sexual prowess. So she's actually exposing herself because it's like, okay, she had to use sex as the main thing to get attention. She had to bust it wide open and bend it over to get attention. So she feels like that's so common for her to where it's boring if you're not busting it wide open just to get attention. Oh, you're not busting it open? Oh, you're boring. Your man doesn't want you. He actually wants me because like I'm more sexual than you. I'm willing to do different things in the bedroom that you're not willing to do. And do you see the obsession with our sex lives as well? Have you ever noticed that? They're obsessed with who we sleep with. They're obsessed with who white men sleep with, who are biracial men sleeping with, who are black men sleeping with. So it's like this femcel talking point. They want to know who everybody else is sleeping with or what everybody else likes sexually. And another thing too, why are you using porn as your standard for sex? You do know that porn is, they're actors. You do know that's acting, right? So why are you allowing yourself to even be brainwashed by porn? Oh, well, this man, he was jacking off to ebony corn, so that means he likes black women. No, that's not what that means, sis. And also, even if a guy does like a certain phenotype or he like jacks off to it, that's not a badge of honor. Like, why would I wear that as a badge of honor? Why would I view that as, oh, I'm the prize? The only women that view that as a prize are women who are in sexual competition with you. So notice how there's a social competition. There is a one-sided social competition against MLS women. There's a one-sided sexual competition with us. We're over here minding our business, just doing whatever. And then you got people obsessing over whether or not we're boring in the bedroom. They're obsessing over who we've slept with. Also, there's the MLS whore stereotype. Have you ever noticed people have the Madonna whore complex really bad with MLS women? So you're either boring and not sexy and, your man is secretly jacking off to ebony corn, or you're a whore. So you're a 304, you just want attention. You're sleeping with all these unambiguous men. I've noticed that a lot of misogynistic MLS men or black men, they project that onto us. I've seen some of them commenting on my channel. Like, oh, well, you guys just go and sleep with all the unambiguous men. Why do you care about who we sleep with if you're not attracted to us because we're whores? If you don't like whores, why do you care about who the whore sleeps with? Anyway, what do you ladies think? Let me know in the comment section, and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.